Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Hannah if you are new here, and in today's video I'm going to be talking about all the books I read in February, specifically written by Black authors. Happy Black History Month in the United States. I also participated in, to the best of my ability, the Blackathon Readathon hosted by Jesse over at Jesse on YouTube, who recently changed their name. Love that for them. I will have a link to their announcement down below. I will also be talking about the prompts that I was able to complete for that reading challenge. The first genre we're going to talk about is fantasy and science fiction, and I always go from the lowest rated book in that genre to the highest rated book in that genre. The first book I'm going to be talking about, I already did a review for this entire series up on my channel, and that is the fourth book in the Earthsinger Chronicles by L. Penelope, the fourth book being Requiem of Silence. I ended up giving this book 3 stars. I thought it was a pretty decent conclusion to a quartet. Not my favorite though. If you would like additional thoughts on this book in particular, as well as the Earthsinger Chronicles series, I have a video for that. The second book we're going to talk about fairly briefly as well is Fevered Star by Rebecca Roanhorse. This is book 2 in the Earth and Sky trilogy, quartet, who knows, the series. The first book being The Black Sun, and I actually really like this. I liked this better than book 1, which is seemingly controversial. A lot of people say this book suffers from middle book syndrome, and while I agree, I still enjoyed it. I still really liked where the characters were at and where they progressed, and I thought where this ended was pretty dang epic. So I'm really glad I continued on with this series, and I will be continuing on to the final installment as well. I ended up giving Fevered Star like 4.25 stars. It was like not quite a 4, not quite a 4.5. I don't know. I've been doing a lot of 0.25 stars lately, and I don't know why. It is what it is. The last book in the fantasy sci-fi genre is the novella The Murders of Molly Southbourne by Todd A. Thompson. This was a science fiction horror novella, and I really liked it. It was gruesome, it was graphic, it was violent. This is about a young woman who's, every time she bleeds, a copy or a clone of herself is created, and the clone is trying to kill her. And so she has been training her whole life to kill the clones of herself that are generated. And this was so interesting and such a fun concept. And this gave me that sick to my tummy worried feeling that I really like out of good horror. So I ended up giving The Murders of Molly Southbourne 4.5 out of 5 stars. The one thing I will say is I really liked where this concluded, and I don't know if sequels are needed. This is like a trilogy, and I really liked the first one on its own, so I may not continue, but let me know if you've read the series and if you think I should try book 2 and 3. And I went on a little bit of a historical romance journey, which I'm super happy with because I found a new favorite, and that new favorite 5-star read is Rebel by Beverly Jenkins. This was so good. This is one of those books where I finished reading it and I immediately wanted to turn back the audiobook to chapter 1 and start reading again. That's how much I liked it. This is about our main character Val, who is a school teacher, and she is from the North. This is during the Reconstruction era of the United States, and Val is from the North and travels to the Southern United States to establish a school and to teach formerly enslaved individuals how to read and do math and all that stuff. And she is an icon and a legend and is so brave and strong and sassy. I really enjoyed Val as one of our leads. The other lead is Drake. Now, he is a fairly well-off man in society. He's a really big integral part of the community. His whole family is, and he is my new dream book boyfriend. Oh my gosh, Drake says some of the most swoony lines I have ever read in terms of making me blush. Like, the flirtation in this book was on the next level. Without gushing completely about these two and how much I love them together as a couple, I thought this was an excellent book in terms of romance, in terms of plot outside the romance, in terms of side characters. I thought this had it all. The family aspect of this book was one of my favorites. The fact that Val kind of became part of this family. Drake and the community and his family was just so wonderful to read. This does, of course, deal with some racism and violence towards women. There is an attempted rape on page, but it is thwarted. So I just wanted to call those things out a little bit beforehand. So be sensitive with the, you know, subject matter and the time period in which this takes place, but everything works out in the end, just like all romance books. This was a 5 out of 5. I'm gushing about it. I'm blushing about it. I loved this book. I continued on a little bit of a Beverly Jenkins journey. So the second book I read by Beverly Jenkins was called Wild Rain, and the third book I read by her was called Forbidden. And so I'll kind of talk about both of these books together. I didn't love either of them as much as I loved Rebel. Wild Rain is about a woman named Spring Lee who was thrown out by her grandfather when she was a teenager, and she ended up having to work in a pretty horrible condition to make ends meet and try to survive on her own. And so she's been living out in this small town out west, and she ends up saving a man from a blizzard, and she nurses him back to health, and they form a little romance. And he is a man who is trying to create an article about, like, the town doctor, and he ends up staying with her. And this was cute. This was fun. I just didn't enjoy the couple quite as much as I did the previous book. And then, of course, Forbidden was my least favorite. I ended up giving Forbidden 3 stars. And this is about a white passing black man who chooses to leave behind his black heritage and culture and passes a white man. And so he's really well off, but he uses his wealth to benefit the community, the black community, by giving them loans and, you know, investing in their businesses and their ideas, which I thought was really cool. And then kind of along comes our lady main character, and she wants to be a chef, and so she wants to own her own restaurant, and she has all these dreams, and our leading man ends up saving her from a pretty terrible situation. I didn't like this couple. I liked our lady, the chef. I've forgotten their names by now, you'll have to forgive me, but the dude was a little bit too much of a jerk to me. He kind of presses and pushes boundaries a lot with the lady main character, and that really kind of rubbed me the wrong way. She is trying to uphold boundaries because she's like, you're white, or she thinks he's white, you know, you're a white man and I'm a black woman, and there's only, you know, one way this relationship could end, and I don't want to be your mistress, and that kind of thing. And he doesn't really respect that. So that just kind of rubbed me the wrong way. So I ended up not loving this one as much, but I highly recommend Rebel by this author. A contemporary romance that I did really like was Fake It Till You Bake It. And this was so cute and fun. This is about an NFL player named Dominic, and he owns a bakery, and he's trying to get this bakery off the ground. And so he basically can have something besides football to, you know, leave on as his legacy and to, like, sustain him and his family, because he's getting older, and, you know, the NFL is really hard on your body and you can't play it forever. So he's opening a bakery. In walks our leading lady, Jada, and she sticks her nose up at the bakery establishment, but ends up having to work there because she is getting cut off from her inheritance. And she is also a character who she's in her 20s and doesn't really have any life goals, and is just really trying to find herself. So she actually went on a reality TV show similar to, like, The Bachelor, and she got proposed to, and in the end she turned down the man, and everyone on the internet hates her, essentially. So she is kind of going through a rough time, and of course, sparks fly. I thought this was great. I thought this was cute. I thought this was fun. This has a little bit of like a fake dating element to it. I enjoyed the commentary on reality TV and, you know, how fickle it is. And I enjoyed how Jada really came into her own and, you know, found what she wants to do with her life. And I like those types of stories in general. I didn't like the third act breakup as per usual, but I ended up still giving this book a 4 out of 5 stars and really liked it. Hey, now we're talking about all the queer stories I read, queer romances. This month was essentially romances and sci-fi fantasy, and if that doesn't sum up my reading tastes, I don't know what was, with a dash of horror, which is exactly what I like to read. From the lowest to the highest, but still at a 3.5 star, is Treasure by Rebecca Weatherspoon. This is an author I've read from before, and this is a sapphic love story novella, and this is pretty smutty. This was pretty hot. I did feel a little strange reading this one because the one of the main ladies is 18 and the other one is 20. And I was like, that feels a little weird for me to read, so I would classify this as like new adult. Anyway, this is about our two main characters who are going to college together, but they actually met at a strip club beforehand, and one of the main characters is a stripper at the club named Treasure. And this is about the two of them falling in love. I don't want to say too much because this is also very short, but I liked how sex positive this was and sex worker positive this was, and the, you know, stripping element of it and how that was portrayed. And in any case, I liked this story. I didn't love this story. Again, I had a few weird issues with like the age of the characters and me as a 28-year-old, like feeling a little weird about it, but that's on me. The next sapphic novella I read was also 3.5 stars, and that is Once Ghosted, Twice Shy by Alyssa Cole, another author I've read from before. And this is about two characters who were together previously, and one of the ladies ended up, I wouldn't say ghosting, she broke up with our other main character here and just like stopped responding and said, hey, this isn't gonna work, I need space, and then stopped responding. And this is about them getting back together, and you also figure out why the initial breakup happened. And I don't think that telling, actually breaking up with someone, even if it's over text and then saying, I just need time, or this isn't gonna work, it's not gonna work for me anymore, I don't think that that's ghosting. So kind of had an issue with that. Ghosting is like when you legitimately just never respond anymore and don't say anything. I understand the need and the want and the desire for additional closure on top of that, but I don't think that's necessarily ghosting. And the reason that they broke up initially, once you figure it out, is totally legitimate, which is why I was okay with them breaking up initially and also how they got back together. This was also like just a good time, just a fun time. Didn't love it, didn't hate it. Also sapphic. And the third sapphic novella I read was Mangoes and Mistletoe by Adriana Herrera. Again, a sapphic novella I rated 3.5 out of 5 stars. This is about two characters who are both of Dominican descent, and they are both on a baking competition show in Scotland. And they form a little fling while they're filming the show. And this is a Grumpy Sunshine scenario, and basically the biggest reason I didn't love this book was the grumpy character. His name is Kiskia. She was too grumpy for me. She was on the verge of being straight up mean and bullying and cruel, and I don't like that. If you're gonna be grumpy, you can have a bad attitude without being outwardly cruel, in my opinion. So I just really didn't like that. This was steamy though. This was super steamy, which I appreciated. But again, 3.5 out of 5 stars for that character dynamic. Now we're getting into my last 2 books and my 2 probably favorites for the month. We have a 4-star read, which is Harbor by Rebecca Weatherspoon. Oh boy. This is a queer polyamorous BDSM story, but it's also very emotionally intense. So what happens? How this throuple happens. Okay, let me explain. So we've got Brooklyn, Chris, and Vaughn. And Chris and Vaughn are in a relationship already at the start of the book. And they are in a throuple with a third woman. And Brooklyn is actually engaged to be married to another man. And the 2 partners up here were cheating with each other on their respective partners, right? So these 2 are cheating up here, and they were murdered together in bed, which is how the cheating was discovered. So super, super intense right off the bat. And so what ends up happening is Brooklyn and Vaughn and Chris end up kind of coming together because of their grief and their similar feelings of betrayal about why their partners were cheating on them. And emotional attachment quickly becomes physical intimacy in this. So this was very steamy, this was very BDSM, this was... But the thing is, this throuple communicated every single step of the way in terms of the smut scenes. And I think that is really beautiful. And everyone was on board with what was happening, even though it was, you know, a little BDSM, a little bit like Brooklyn had never done any of that before, but the other 2 men, Chris and Vaughn, really guide her through and make her feel comfortable every step of the process, which I really, really appreciated, and why I ended up giving this 4 stars. I thought this was really great and really, really smutty. Oh my gosh. And a surprising 5 stars is The Romantic Agenda by Claire Kahn. Now, the reason that this is a surprise is I don't think this is a romance book. It's about our main character, Joy, who has been in love with her best friend, Malcolm, their entire friendship, and has never acted upon it. And so Malcolm invites Joy on a weekend trip with his new girlfriend and the new girlfriend's best guy friend, to essentially Malcolm wants to spend time with his new partner. So he invites Joy to spend time with the other friend, so Malcolm can spend more time with his girlfriend, essentially. And so this book literally takes place over the course of a weekend, and I would classify this as like the start of a romance. A lot of romance books are just the beginning of a relationship, but this, I think, is especially true with this one in particular, because not only are we just getting the spark of a new romance between Joy, and of course his name is Fox, between Joy and Fox, we're also getting a lot, I mean a lot, of emotional growth in terms of Joy trying to get over Malcolm and kind of grow up and learn to move past him as an option. And so this was really emotionally intense, and I also really appreciated this book because both Joy and Malcolm are asexual, and that is explored pretty heavily in the text. And I really liked how that played out with the new relationship between Joy and Fox. So I really thought this was sweet. I thought this was emotional and really heartfelt, but unlike any other romance I've ever read before, like almost like literary fiction, and typically I don't like that, but this one really worked for me, and I ended up giving it 5 stars. Like, unpopular opinion, but this was really good. Very quickly, I just want to talk about the Blackathon readathon and what prompts I was able to complete with this slew of reading. So I'm going to be reading my notes here. So I was on team Oshun, which Jessie has written, named after the river Orisha, known for love among other traits, because love is a battleground. The first prompt is a book with a hate to love romance, and I was not able to complete this. I don't think any of these books that I read were technically hate to love. A lot of it was like bad first impressions to love rather than actual hate to love. So the closest one I would say is maybe Fake It Till You Bake It, but I don't think I completed this one. The next one I did think I completed, and that is a book with a strong aquatic theme or water magic. So I put Harbor for this and The Romantic Agenda. Both of these books are set around the water, and the characters do end up doing, you know, go boating and stuff on their respective water. So I count this. The third prompt is a book with a yellow color or an author's name that begins with a Y, which I thought was a really interesting prompt. So I'm going to count Fevered Star, Rebel, and Requiem of Silence. All of these books have different types of yellow tones on the cover. The last prompt that I was able to check off was a book that is kinky, smutty, and sex positive. And for this, I read Treasure and Harbor, which were both super smutty. And also, I would say Mangoes and Mistletoe. That one was also super smutty. And the bonus group book for Team Oshun was Fake It Till You Bake It, which I obviously read and really liked. That is it. Those are all of the books I read this month that were written by Black authors. Thank you so much for watching this video, and let me know of any of your favorite books written by Black authors in the comments down below, as I would love to continue reading Black authors all year round. And I will see you in another video of mine very soon. Bye.